The water is black beneath me, and whatever is down there has been circling for the last 4 minutes. I know because I've been counting. Let me take you back to the beginning of this nightmare. Because if I don't tell someone what happened to me 40 feet below the surface of the Pacific Ocean on the night of October 14th, I think I will lose whatever is left of my mind. I have been scuba diving for 11 years. Night dives are not new to me. I have done them in the Caribbean, off the coast of Thailand, in the cold gray waters of the North Atlantic. I know what darkness underwater feels like. I know how to manage my breathing when my heart rate spikes. I know how to stay calm. Nothing, not 11 years, not 100 dives, not every certification I have ever earned, prepared me for that night. It was supposed to be a simple recreational dive. My buddy Marcus and I had mapped out a shallow reef site off the northern coast of Monterey Bay. 40 feet maximum depth, familiar territory, an area we had dove together at least a dozen times during the day. The plan was clean and straightforward. We descend at 9 p.m., spend 60 minutes exploring the reef wall, ascend slowly, be back on the boat by 10:15. Simple, controlled, routine. Marcus canceled at 7. He said he had a migraine. He said go without him, that the conditions were perfect and I would regret it if I waited. He said he would monitor me from the boat. He said a lot of things. And I listened, because Marcus was always right about conditions, and the water that night was glass. Absolutely flat. No current, no chop, not even a ripple. The surface looked like black mirror. The kind of calm that experienced divers dream about. I should have turned around when I got to the dock and found it empty. There was supposed to be a harbor master on duty. There was supposed to be at least one other vessel moored nearby. A research boat that had been there every time I had visited this site for the past 3 seasons. That night, the dock was bare concrete and silence. I told myself the research team had moved on. I told myself the harbor master was taking a bathroom break. I told myself everything was fine. I suit up alone. I run my checks alone. I roll backward off the side of my inflatable, and I drop beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean completely alone at 9:13 p.m. The first 10 minutes are peaceful. That is the cruelest part of this memory. Those first 10 minutes are genuinely, breathtakingly beautiful. My primary light is a Sola 2000, a powerful handheld torch that throws a wide white beam about 15 feet in front of me. In that beam, I can see the reef wall crawling with life. Garibaldi fish the color of burning embers. A moray eel, thick as my forearm, watching me from a crevice with those flat ancient eyes. A wolf eel drifting below me like a living ribbon of shadow. The ocean at night is a completely different world than the ocean in daylight, and I have always loved that. I have always felt privileged to be in it. I descend slowly to 38 feet and begin my lateral sweep along the reef wall. I check my gauges. Air is good. No deco obligation. I am breathing steadily and everything feels exactly the way it is supposed to feel. At 9:27, my light begins to flicker. Just once. A single pulse of darkness, less than half a second, and then the beam comes back full strength. I stop. I check the housing. No flooding. If water had gotten into the casing, the beam would have died completely and stayed dead. The battery indicator shows 70% charge. I tap the body of the torch the way you tap an old television and the light holds steady. I keep moving. At 9:31, it flickers again. Twice this time. I am experienced enough to know that I should begin ascending. I have a backup light, a small canister torch clipped to my BCD, but it is a fraction of the power of my primary, and 40 feet underwater in total darkness with only a backup light is not a situation you want to be in alone. I make the decision to ascend slowly and abort the dive. I am reaching for my BCD inflator to begin my ascent when my primary light dies completely. Not a flicker. Not a fade. One moment there is light, and the next moment there is nothing. The darkness that replaces it is unlike any darkness I have ever experienced on the surface. It is not just the absence of light. It is a presence. It has weight. It presses against my mask, against my skin, against the thin film of my wetsuit, and it is absolutely, completely, perfectly silent except for the sound of my own regulator, that mechanical in-out that is the only thing separating me from the water filling my lungs. I do not panic. I want to be clear about that. I have trained for this exact scenario. I locate my backup torch by feel, unclip it, activate it. The beam is thin and pale, and it reaches maybe 6 feet in front of me. But it is light, it is enough. I orient myself toward the surface. I can see the faint green luminescence of my dive computer on my wrist. Depth 30, 8 feet. I begin to ascend. That is when something brushes against my right leg. It is not a bump. It is not a collision. It is a brush, deliberate, almost gentle, the way a hand might trail across your ankle in the dark. Long and slow and impossibly intentional. I spin. My backup beam cuts a pale circle through the black water and finds nothing. Empty water. The reef wall 3 feet to my left. Open ocean to my right, swallowing my light before it reaches 10 feet. I tell myself it is a fish. Large fish bump into divers at night all the time. They navigate by lateral line. They sense your pressure wave. They get curious. I tell myself this is normal and I continue ascending. At 30 feet, something brushes my left leg. Same sensation, long, slow, trailing from my knee to my ankle like fingers reading braille. I spin again. The pale circle of my backup beam. Empty water. The reef wall receding below me. Open ocean in every direction. I stop ascending. This is a mistake, I know, stopping mid-water column in the dark. But my brain has disconnected from my training and connected to something older and much more frightened. I am hanging in black water at 30 feet with a failing light and something is touching me and I cannot see it. I point my beam straight down. For 3 seconds, I see nothing. Just the cone of pale light fading into absolute black below me. The reef wall falling away into deeper water. Something moves at the edge of my light. Not through it. At the edge of it, at the exact perimeter, where my beam loses its power and the dark takes over. It is there for less than half a second. A shape, too large to be any fish I know. Not the silhouette of a shark. I know shark silhouettes, the profile of a great white, the anvil head of a hammerhead. This is not that. This is longer. This is irregular in a way that makes my mind refuse to fully process what my eyes are reporting. It drifts out of my beam the way smoke drifts away from a candle, and the water above me, the water I need to ascend through to reach the surface, goes completely, perfectly still. I ascend anyway, because there is nothing else to do. You cannot stay at 30 feet in the Pacific Ocean in total darkness forever. Your air runs out and the ocean takes you. So I ascend. At 20 feet, something brushes both legs simultaneously, one on each side, at the same moment, gentle, slow. I do not look down. I make that choice consciously and deliberately. I do not look down. I ascend. At 15 feet, I slow for my safety stop, and I count to 60 while breathing through the regulator in long, deliberate pulls, and I do not look down. At 10 feet, the surface is a pale gray membrane above me, and I can see moonlight filtering through it, and I kick toward it, and I do not look down. I breach the surface at 9:40, 4 p.m. I get back to the boat. I pull myself over the gunwale. I lie on the fiberglass hull staring up at the night sky for 6 full minutes before I can make myself move. When I finally sit up and shine my backup torch at the water, there is nothing there. Just black ocean and white moonlight and the sound of nothing at all. I have never dived at night again. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it. I wish I could tell you I went home and slept and wrote the whole thing off as a large fish, an overactive imagination, a darkness-addled brain manufacturing monsters from shadows and cold water. I have tried very hard to believe that. I spent 3 months trying to believe it. Then last spring, a research team was working a site 4 miles north of where I dove that night. They were doing a benthic survey at around 60 feet. One of their cameras, a tethered unit they dropped to the bottom and leave running, recorded something at 2:17 in the morning. Marcus sent me the footage without a message. No context, no explanation, just a link. I watched it once. I will not describe in detail what I saw moving at the edge of that camera's light. I will not, because there are limits to what I am willing to put into language. But I will tell you that it moved the same way the shape at the edge of my backup beam moved. That slow, drifting smoke like irregularity. And when it passed closest to the camera, very briefly it turned in the direction of the lens. Whatever it is, it looked. Story number 2. There is a man living in my house. He has been there for 7 months. He knows my name. That sentence used to feel like the sentence of a crazy person. I have stood in front of mirrors and said it out loud, testing it against my own face, watching myself say the words and waiting for them to stop sounding true. They never do. So I am going to tell you exactly what happened from the beginning, because the beginning is the part that will terrify you the most. Not the ending, not the discovery, but the beginning, when everything was completely normal and I had no idea. I move into the house on the 1st of March. It is a rental, a 3-bedroom Craftsman in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon. Old house built in 1947, with high ceilings and original hardwood floors and the particular smell of old wood and cold that houses from that era always carry. The landlord is a man named Gerald, late 60s, semi-retired, who owns 3 or 4 properties in the area and manages them himself. He is the kind of landlord who answers texts within the hour and fixes what breaks, and I consider myself lucky to have found the place. I am a freelance audio engineer. I work from home. I am single, live alone, keep irregular hours. I am in the house for most of every day. The first thing I notice is the cereal. I keep a box of granola on the second shelf of my pantry. I have one exact habit with this box. I fold the inner bag closed and tuck the flap of the cardboard top into the side slot. Every time, without exception. It is an automatic behavior, the kind of mindless ritual that becomes invisible through repetition. I do not think about it, I just do it. Twice in the first month, I find the box with the inner bag unfolded and the cardboard flap just laid flat on top instead of tucked in. I assume I forgot. I assume I was tired or distracted. I make a mental note to be more careful and I move on with my life. In the second month, I begin to feel watched. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. I am a rational person. I have never believed in ghosts, never been prone to anxiety, never experienced paranoia. But there is a quality to the feeling of being watched that is distinct from ordinary self-consciousness, and what I begin to feel in that house in April is precisely that quality. It hits me hardest in the back bedroom, the one I use as a studio, and in the hallway outside the bathroom at night. A prickling at the back of the neck, an awareness of the space behind me that my eyes cannot verify. I start leaving more lights on. I start playing music through the whole house, instead of just in the room I am working in. I tell myself I am lonely. I tell myself living alone in a quiet house plays tricks on your nervous system. I tell myself it is the old house settling. In the third month, I find a coffee mug in the back of my cabinet that I do not own. It is a plain white mug. No markings, no logo, no distinguishing features. But it is not mine. I do an inventory of everything I own. I am meticulous about my belongings. I always have been. And this mug does not appear on any inventory I have ever made. I hold it under the kitchen light and examine it. The bottom is slightly discolored, the particular stain of frequent use, the ring of coffee residue that builds up over months of regular drinking. Someone has been using this mug. I tell Gerald. He says the previous tenant may have left it. He says he thought he did a full clean, out after they left, but it was possible something got missed. He offers to come by. I say no, it is fine, I am probably overthinking it. I put the mug in a paper bag and put the bag in my recycling bin. The next morning, the mug is back in the cabinet. I am standing in my kitchen at 7:20 a.m. with a cup of coffee in my hand and a perfectly clean white mug sitting in the back of my cabinet. And my brain is doing the thing that brains do when they encounter something that does not fit within their model of reality. It is generating alternative explanations faster than I can evaluate them. I took it out of the recycling bin in my sleep. I imagine putting it in the recycling bin. Gerald has a key he came by. He found the mug in the bin and thought I had accidentally thrown it away. Every explanation my brain generates is more absurd than the last, and they are all more absurd than the obvious one, the one I will not think yet, the one I am not ready for. I put the mug in my car. I drive it to a gas station 6 blocks away and put it in a public trash can. I watch the lid close over it. That night, I cannot sleep. I lie in my bed listening to the house with a new kind of attention. The attention you use when you are trying to hear something specific in static, and the house is quiet. Old house quiet. The tick of pipes, the groan of floor joists, the movement of air through vents. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. At 2:40 a.m., I hear a sound that is not ordinary. It is coming from the wall behind my headboard. Not a knock, not a sharp impact. A slow, continuous sound. Like someone adjusting their position. Like the creak of weight shifting from one place to another. Very carefully, very slowly. With great deliberate effort to be quiet. The sound lasts approximately 4 seconds and then stops. I do not move. I am lying on my back in my bed, and I am absolutely still, and my mind has just completed a process that has been building for 3 months. Quietly assembling evidence I refuse to look at, and it has arrived at a conclusion that my body understood before my brain did. Which is why I am already sweating, which is why my hands are already gripping the sheets, which is why I am not moving at all. There is someone inside my walls. It takes me 2 hours to get out of bed. When I do, I turn on every light in the house and I walk every room, and I look at every wall with fresh eyes. In the hallway outside my studio, I find something I have walked past for 3 months without seeing. A section of baseboard that has been recently repainted. Slightly brighter than the surrounding trim. The brushstrokes running in the opposite direction, covering something. I run my fingers along the seam and the panel moves. An access panel, roughly 18 inches by 30, cut directly into the wall and secured with 2 small magnetic closures hidden beneath the paint. I do not open it. I call the police. They find a space behind the walls that runs the full length of the back of the house. Connected to the original utility crawl space through a modified junction, approximately 4 feet wide at its widest point, narrowing to about 2.5 feet in the sections between studs. A sleeping mat, a battery, powered lantern, not plugged into anything, so no power draw to show up on my utility bill. A small cooler, a milk crate, and in the milk crate, among other things, a spiral notebook. The detective handling the case does not show me the notebook. She tells me later, after much persistence on my part, some of what is in it. Entries going back 11 months, before I moved in. Entries describing the previous tenant, a woman named Rachel who moved out in February. Entries describing the neighborhood, the schedule of garbage trucks, the patterns of dog walkers, and then the date I moved in, noted in the notebook with my full name. My full name, which is not on my mailbox. Not on the lease, which is a private document, not on any public record associated with this address. He knew my name before I moved in. The entries about me are brief and observational. What time I wake up, what I eat, what hours I work, how often I leave the house. They read with a clinical detachment that the detective describes to me very carefully, watching my face as she speaks, the way you watch the face of someone you are worried might fall apart. I do not fall apart. I am past falling apart. I am in the part that comes after falling apart, which is a cold, white, endless room with no furniture and no doors. He is never found. This is the part I have not fully absorbed even now, more than a year later. They identify him. A man in his early 50s, with a history that I will not detail here, because it would change this from a horror story into something else, something worse. They identify him. They issue a warrant. He is never found. I have moved, obviously. 3 times in 14 months, each time more carefully, each time with a building inspector, and sometimes a private contractor to verify wall cavities before I sign anything. I have a new landlord. I have new locks. I have sensors on every access panel in the building. I still hear it sometimes. That sound. Lying in the dark at 2 a.m., that slow creak of deliberate, careful shifting weight. I know it is not real. I know it is my brain, rewired now, running the algorithm it will probably run for the rest of my life. Scanning, listening, measuring, but I never open the wall to check. Because the thing about that sound, the thing that keeps me staring at the ceiling until morning, is that for 3 months, when I heard sounds in that house and told myself they were normal, I was wrong. And I will never be completely certain I am not wrong again. Story number 3. I am standing in the middle of the Mojave Desert at 1:47 in the morning, and the thing that I have just hit with my car is making a sound that I will hear in my sleep until the day I die. You need to understand the geography before you can understand the fear. Nevada Route 375. The extraterrestrial highway, they call it. Not because of what I am about to tell you, but because it runs through the Nevada Test and Training Range, and people have been reporting things in this airspace for 70 years. It is a long, flat, two-lane road through one of the most desolate stretches of land in North America. The nearest town in either direction is more than 40 miles away. There are no houses out here, no ranches, no rest stops, no emergency pullouts with call boxes. On a clear night with no moon, you can drive for 90 minutes without seeing a single light that was not put there by the stars. I am driving from Las Vegas to a friend's house outside Reno. I have done this drive before, always in daylight. This time I leave late. Stupid, I know, but I have done it before and the logic seemed sound at the time. Take the highway west, pick up 375 north, punch through the desert while there is no traffic, save 3 hours. Simple, it is simple, until it is not. I am somewhere between Alamo and Tonopah when it happens. I am doing about 65, which is 5 under the limit, because the road out here plays optical tricks on you at night. The yellow center line disappears and reappears in your headlights in a rhythm that starts to feel hypnotic if you are not careful. And I am being careful. I have my window cracked an inch. I am listening to a podcast. I am awake and alert and paying attention to the road. The thing steps into my headlights from the right shoulder. I brake. I cannot tell you the exact sequence of what happens in the next 2 seconds because 2 seconds at 65 miles per hour is a very long time and also no time at all. I know I brake hard. I know I do not swerve. That is the first thing they teach you, do not swerve. A controlled stop is better than an uncontrolled swerve into the opposite lane. I do not swerve. I brake. I feel the impact. A single, solid concussive thud transmitted up through the chassis into my hands on the steering wheel. And I stop. The car is still running. The hazard lights are on. I have no memory of activating them, but apparently my hands did it on their own. The headlights are still on. In the headlights, the road in front of me is empty. I sit for 30 seconds. I am trying to get my breathing under control. My heart is doing something architectural and wrong inside my chest. I sit and I breathe, and then I get out of the car because I have hit something, and whatever I have hit is lying somewhere on or near this road, and I cannot simply drive away. There is nothing in front of the car. I walk the full beam of my headlights, about 200 feet, and there is nothing on the road, no blood, no impact debris, no body. I check the right shoulder. Scrub and hardpan desert stretching into darkness. I check the left shoulder. Same. I go back and look at the front of my car. There is damage. A dent in the lower front bumper, off center to the right, and a small fracture in the fog light housing. Something hit this car. Something with enough mass to dent a bumper. It hit and it is not here. I am standing in the beam of my headlights in the Nevada desert at 1:47 a.m. looking at the dent in my bumper when I hear the sound. It is coming from the desert to my right, about 40 feet off the road, in the darkness beyond where my lights reach. A sound I cannot immediately categorize. Not an animal sound exactly, though it has an organic quality that makes my skin do something involuntary and immediate. It is rhythmic, low, wet. The best description I can give you, and I have tried many times to find better language for it, is that it sounds like something large breathing through a wound. I stand very still. The sound continues, slow and rhythmic and wet and absolutely continuous. My phone has 2 bars of signal out here, which is one more than I expected. I call 911 and get a dispatch operator who sounds bored and far away. I tell her I have hit something on 375 and I give my best approximation of my location based on my GPS. She tells me a highway patrol unit is about 30 minutes out. She tells me to stay with my vehicle. I go back to my car. I leave the hazard lights on. I do not turn off the engine. The sound from the desert continues. For 22 minutes, while I sit in my car and stare at the darkness through the windshield, the sound continues. It does not get louder or quieter. It does not change its rhythm. It is perfectly, mechanically consistent, the way a machine is consistent, the way a living thing with intention is consistent. At minute 23 it stops. Not a fade. Not a gradual diminishing. It stops the way a radio stops when you cut the power. One moment it is there, and the next moment the desert is completely silent. 30 seconds later, something walks in front of my car. Through the headlights. Left to right, crossing the road from the left shoulder to the right, slowly and without any apparent awareness of or concern for the running car with its lights and hazards. I am watching it through the windshield. I am watching it very carefully, and I am also having a profound difficulty processing what I am seeing, because what I am seeing will not hold still in my mind. Every time I try to bring it into focus, my perception slides off it the way eyes slide off something that refuses to be looked at directly. I can give you dimensions. Approximately 4.5 to 5 feet tall, moving on 2 limbs, upright, but the gait is wrong. Not wrong the way someone with an injury walks wrong, but wrong the way a reflection is wrong. A fundamental spatial inversion that makes the motion look like something is pulling it rather than propelling it. The limbs are too long. Not dramatically, not cartoonishly, just enough. The proportional wrongness that you feel in your gut before your brain can articulate it. It takes 12 seconds to cross the road. It does not look at me. 18 minutes later, the Highway Patrol unit arrives. Officer, mid-40s, 20-year veteran of the Nevada desert. I tell him exactly what I have told you. He does not look skeptical. He does not look surprised. He looks, if anything, very tired in a very specific way. He takes a report. He walks the scene with a flashlight. He finds the same thing I found. Nothing on the road, nothing on either shoulder, damage on my car consistent with an impact. Before he gets back in his vehicle, I ask him directly, what do people usually hit out here? What is out in the desert at night that could dent a bumper and then disappear? He thinks about it for a moment. He is a careful man, you can tell, the kind of man who thinks before he speaks. He says, sir, in 20 years working this stretch, there are 3 questions I have stopped asking. What people actually see out here, what they actually hit, and whether I really want to know the answers. Then he gets in his car and drives away. I follow him until his tail lights disappear. And then I am alone on the extraterrestrial highway with my dented bumper and my 2 bars of signal, and the desert on both sides of me going dark in every direction for 40 miles. I drive the rest of the way to Reno without stopping. I keep my eyes on the center line. I keep the radio loud. I do not look into the desert on either side of the road, because somewhere between Alamo and Tonopah, in the darkness beyond the reach of headlights, something is still out there, breathing through its wound, waiting.